Imagine a world where farmers are struggling to buy new tractors. It's not science fiction.
No.
It's happening right now.
Yeah.
And the impact goes way beyond the farm.
For sure.
Today, we're diving into the world of agricultural machinery.
Okay.
With some surprising news.
All right.
Sales are down for industry giants.
Yeah.
Like John Deere,
Right.
AGCO,
Okay.
and CNH Industrial.
Okay.
We've got financial reports
Yeah.
and industry analysis
Right.
to figure out what's going on and what it means for you.
Okay.
Whether you're a farmer,
Yeah.
an investor, or just someone who's curious about the forces shaping our food supply.
That's a great point. So what's fascinating here is that we're not just talking about a dip in sales. We're looking at a significant downturn across the entire industry.
Right. And it's not like people are suddenly buying fewer tractors because they've discovered a new magical way to plow their fields.
Right.
Something bigger is going on here.
For sure.
So let's start with the headline news.
Right.
John Deere is projecting a 20 to 25% drop in annual revenue for its agricultural machinery division.
And that's not just a projection for the future. If we look at their half-year results covering October through April, sales are already down 9% compared to the same period last year. That translates to roughly 10.5 billion euros in revenue, a significant chunk of change.
So it's not just a blip on the radar.
Nope.
It's a real trend.
Yeah.
But is it just a John Deere problem?
Well, no, it's pretty widespread.
Okay.
CNH Industrial, which owns brands like Case IH and New Holland, saw a 13% wreck in revenue for the first half of 2024, with their agricultural division taking the biggest hit at a 17% decline.
Wow.
And AGCO, the company behind brands like Fendt, Massey Ferguson, and Valtra, is also struggling with sales, down 13.7% in the first 6 months of this year.
Wow. Those numbers are definitely painting a consistent and somewhat bleak picture.
It seems that way.
But what's driving this decline in demand?
Well,
is it just one thing?
Yeah.
Or is there a perfect storm brewing?
Well, you've got a few potential culprits to consider. First, we've got the global economic slowdown when the economy weakens.
Right.
People tend to hold back on big purchases.
Yeah.
And a new tractor is definitely a major investment for a farmer.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like putting off buying a new car.
Exactly.
When you're worried about your job security.
For sure.
And then you've got inflation.
Right.
Which is making everything more expensive.
Yep.
From fuel to fertilizer. High inflation eats into farmers' profits, leaving them with less cash to invest in new equipment.
Yeah.
And let's not forget those lingering supply chain issues that have been plaguing everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Those disruptions can make it difficult for manufacturers to get the parts they need, driving up prices and leading to delays, which further discourages farmers from making big purchases.
So it really does sound like a perfect storm of economic factors.
Yeah, it does seem that way.
But let's dig a little deeper
into
those supply chain issues.
Right.
We know they've been a problem for a while.
Yeah.
But what specific components are causing the biggest bottlenecks in agricultural machinery production?
That's a great question.
And
it's important to remember that agricultural machinery relies on a complex network of suppliers, from those providing basic materials like steel to those producing specialized electronics and software. One of the key bottlenecks we're seeing is in the semiconductor industry. These chips are essential for everything, from engine management systems to GPS guidance. And the global chip shortage has hit agricultural machinery manufacturers hard.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because we usually hear about the chip shortage impacting things like cars and computers.
Right.
I didn't realize how reliant tractors and combines are on those tiny little chips.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Modern agricultural machinery is incredibly sophisticated. And those chips are the brains behind many of the advanced features that farmers rely on for efficiency and precision. And beyond chips, you've got shortages in other key components. Tires, hydraulic systems, and even things like glass for tractor cabs.
So it's not just one missing piece.
Right.
It's a whole cascade of disruptions.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's compounded by the rising cost of raw materials like steel, right?
Exactly. The price of steel has been extremely volatile in recent years, and that has a direct impact on the cost of manufacturing agricultural machinery. These machines are essentially giant hunks of metal.
Yeah.
So when steel prices go up, the final price tag for a new tractor or combine can increase significantly.
So we've got farmers facing a triple whammy, a shaky economy, sky-high inflation, and a supply chain that's struggling to keep up.
Yeah.
This might sound like a niche problem, but let's be honest.
Oh, right.
It affects everyone.
Right.
I mean, if farmers can't afford new equipment, or if those machines aren't available, how does that impact the food that ends up on our tables?
That's a critical point.
Right.
This isn't just about the financial woes of a few big companies. It's about the foundation of our food system.
Right.
If farmers are struggling, it can ripple through the entire supply chain, potentially affecting food prices and availability for all of us.
It's like dominoes falling.
Yeah.
One thing impacts another.
Right.
And eventually we're all feeling the effects. But let's shift gears for a moment and look at a glimmer of hope amidst all this doom and gloom. John Deere's projections offer an interesting contrast.
Oh, okay.
While their agricultural machinery division is bracing for a major hit.
Right.
Their construction and forestry division is only expecting a 5 to 10% revenue decrease. What do you make of that difference?
That's a great observation. It suggests that the downturn is more pronounced in the agricultural sector, which could be a sign of the unique challenges farmers are facing right now.
Okay.
It could also reflect the fact that many governments and businesses are prioritizing infrastructure and development projects, which are driving demand for construction and forestry equipment.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not just about the overall economy. It's about where the investment dollars are flowing.
Yeah.
But for farmers, this slowdown in machinery sales has got to be a major headache, especially for those who need to replace aging equipment.
Right.
What are their options in this kind of environment?
Well, for some, it might mean holding on to older, less efficient machines for longer than they'd like.
Yeah.
And that could impact their productivity and profitability, adding to the financial strain they're already under. They might also turn to the used equipment market, which could see a surge in demand as farmers look for more affordable options.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But buying used always comes with its own set of risks.
Right.
You never know what kind of hidden problems you might be inheriting.
For sure.
And what about the farmers who are just starting out? Is this economic climate making it even harder for new entrants to break into the industry?
That's a crucial question.
Right.
And it speaks to the larger issue of access and opportunity in agriculture if the cost of entry becomes prohibitive due to high equipment prices or limited financing options. It could stifle innovation and limit the diversity of voices within the farming community.
It's almost like there's this invisible barrier to entry.
Yeah.
And it's getting even higher. But on the other hand, maybe this situation could create some unexpected opportunities.
Now, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, we've been talking about these giant tractors and combines.
Right.
Which represent a very specific type of farming. Large scale, highly mechanized.
Okay.
What if this downturn actually forces a shift towards different models?
You thinking about smaller scale farming?
Yeah.
Organic methods? And things like regenerative agriculture, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And those models are already gaining traction because of concerns about the environmental impact of industrial agriculture.
Yeah.
Could this be a turning point where they really take off?
It's certainly possible.
Okay.
Smaller farms might be better positioned to weather this economic storm because they're not as reliant on expensive equipment.
Right. They may also be more adaptable and innovative when it comes to finding solutions that work for their specific needs.
Okay, so that's one potential shift.
Yeah.
A move away from the bigger is better mentality.
Right.
But what about the technology side of things? We hear a lot about precision agriculture.
Yeah.
Drones, robotics, all that cool stuff. If farmers are hesitant to invest in new equipment, Could that stifle innovation in these areas?
It's a valid concern.
Okay.
Developing and adopting these new technologies requires significant investment.
Mm-hmm.
And if farmers aren't buying, it could slow down progress.
Right.
But there's another way to look at it.
Okay.
This situation could actually force companies to become more creative and develop solutions that are more affordable and accessible, especially for smaller farms.
So instead of focusing on the super expensive high-tech gadgets that only the biggest operations can afford, they might start developing tools that are more practical.
And within reach for a wider range of farmers.
Precisely.
Okay.
Think about it. Maybe instead of a $500,000 autonomous tractor, you get a $5,000 drone that can help with soil analysis and targeted pesticide application. That kind of technology could be a game changer for smaller farms, making them more efficient and competitive.
And let's not forget about the potential for innovation in areas like regenerative agriculture.
Absolutely.
This approach focuses on soil health and biodiversity, using practices like cover cropping and no-till farming to reduce the need for chemical inputs and heavy machinery.
Regenerative agriculture has the potential to be both environmentally and economically sustainable. It's all about working with nature rather than trying to control it. And the current situation could actually accelerate the adoption of these practices as farmers look for ways to reduce their reliance on expensive inputs and equipment.
Okay, so we've got these potential shifts towards smaller farms, alternative farming models, and more accessible technology. But what about the big players?
Okay.
The John Deeres and AGCOs of the world. Are they just going to sit back and watch their market share shrink?
I doubt it. They're not going to disappear overnight.
Okay.
But they might need to adapt their strategies to stay relevant. We could see them shifting their focus towards smaller, more versatile equipment. Or investing more heavily in technologies that support a wider range of farming practices.
So instead of just selling the biggest and most powerful machines, they might start offering a more diverse product line that caters to the needs of a changing agricultural landscape. Maybe even partnering with smaller tech companies to integrate those innovative solutions we were talking about.
Exactly. It's all about being adaptable and responsive to the needs of the market. And it's not just about selling equipment. It's about providing services and support
that help farmers succeed regardless of their size or approach.
This whole conversation is making me realize that this tractor trouble might not be a disaster, but a catalyst for some much-needed change.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Challenges often create opportunities for innovation and adaptation. And in this case, the challenges facing the agricultural machinery industry could lead to a more diverse, resilient, and sustainable food system.
This is such an important point. We started this deep dive talking about declining sales figures. But now we're talking about the potential for a fundamental shift in how we approach agriculture.
And it's important to remember that these changes won't happen overnight. They'll require collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to embrace new ideas. But the potential benefits are enormous, not just for farmers, but for all of us.
I love that perspective. It's like the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But even if things do shift in a more sustainable direction,
there's still the question of what happens to these industry giants. John Deere, AGCO, CNH Industrial. They've been dominant forces in agriculture for so long. What does their future look like in a world that's embracing smaller farms and alternative practices?
Well, they certainly have the resources and expertise to adapt. They could leverage their vast networks and manufacturing capabilities to develop new technologies that support these emerging trends. They could also explore partnerships with smaller companies that are already leading the way in areas like regenerative agriculture and precision farming.
So instead of trying to hold on to the old model, they could become leaders in shaping a new, more sustainable future for agriculture.
Precisely. It's all about recognizing that change is inevitable. And embracing the opportunity to be part of the solution. And who knows, maybe in a few years, we'll be talking about how this downturn in machinery sales was actually a turning point that led to a more vibrant and innovative agricultural sector.
That's a great thought.
Yeah.
It's like we're standing at a fork in the road. And this slowdown in machinery sales could be the nudge we need to choose a path toward a more sustainable future.
Right.
But there's also another path, right? One that leads to even greater consolidation and control in the agricultural industry.
That's a valid concern. If smaller farms are struggling to stay afloat in this economic climate, it could create an opportunity for larger operations to buy them up, further concentrating land and resources in the hands of a few.
So on one hand, we have this potential for a more diverse and resilient agricultural system with smaller farms, innovative technologies, and a focus on sustainability. But on the other hand, we could see even greater consolidation with fewer players controlling more of the food supply. How do we ensure we end up on the right path?
That's a complex question, and there's no easy answer. But I think it starts with awareness. By understanding the potential outcomes and the forces at play, we can make more informed choices as consumers, investors, and citizens.
So what can people do to make a difference?
Well,
what actions can they take to support the kind of agriculture they want to see in the world?
Well, for starters, you can support local farmers by buying directly from them or choosing products from companies that prioritize sustainable practices. You can also advocate for policies that promote fair competition and support smaller-scale agriculture. And don't underestimate the power of simply staying informed and engaging in conversations about these issues.
Because at the end of the day, the future of farming is in all of our hands.
Exactly. It's a collective effort that requires us to think beyond individual choices and consider the systemic changes that are needed to create a truly sustainable food system.
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has.
We started with declining tractor sales. And ended up talking about the future of agriculture. It's amazing how seemingly isolated events can connect to such broader trends and challenges.
It's all interconnected. And it highlights the importance of looking beyond the surface and understanding the complex forces that shape our world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought.
I love those. Lay it on me.
We've talked about how this downturn in machinery sales could lead to a more diverse agricultural landscape with smaller farms gaining ground. But what if instead of leveling the playing field, this situation actually accelerates the trend of consolidation in agriculture?
Now that's a twist. I see where you're going with this. It's like the old saying, the strong get stronger in a challenging economic climate. Those with deep pockets and existing infrastructure might be best positioned to not just survive, but to expand their operations.
Exactly. If smaller farms are struggling to make ends meet, they might be forced to sell their land. And who's most likely to buy it? Probably the larger, more established operations.
It's a valid concern. And it raises some important questions about the long-term implications for the agricultural industry. If we see even greater consolidation, what does that mean for competition, for innovation, for the livelihoods of farmers who aren't part of those mega operations?
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The economic pressures that are pushing smaller farms to the brink could end up creating an environment where the biggest players become even more dominant.
And that dominance could extend beyond just land ownership. Think about the impact on seed markets, on processing facilities, on distribution networks. If a handful of companies control those key components of the food system, it could have a ripple effect throughout the entire industry.
So we're left with this tension between two potential futures. One where this downturn shakes things up, creating space for new models and a more diverse agricultural landscape, and another where it reinforces existing power structures, leading to even greater consolidation.
And the reality is probably somewhere in between. There's no single predictable outcome. But it's crucial that we're aware of these potential scenarios so we can make informed choices and advocate for the kind of food system we want to see.
Okay, so big picture time. This whole conversation has been a whirlwind. We've gone from declining tractor sales to the future of farming.
That's right.
What does this all mean for someone listening right now? Whether you're directly involved in agriculture or just someone who cares about where the food comes from.
I think the key takeaway is that the future of farming is not preordained.
Right.
It's being shaped by a complex web of economic forces, technological advancements, and importantly, the choices that people make every day.
So what can people do to make a difference?
Well,
what are some concrete actions that can support a more sustainable and equitable food system?
Well, for starters, you can support local farmers by buying directly from them whenever possible. Farmers markets, community-supported agriculture, CSA programs, even just seeking out products from local farms at the grocery store.
Okay.
These are all ways to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with the people who are growing your food.
Right.
And making a conscious decision to support them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can also become a more informed consumer by learning about different farming practices and seeking out products that align with your values. Look for labels like organic, regenerative, or fair trade, which indicate a commitment to sustainability and ethical practices.
So it's not just about where you buy your food.
Nope.
It's about understanding what goes into producing it.
Yeah.
And making choices that support a better system.
Absolutely.
Right.
And don't underestimate the power of simply talking about these issues. Share what you're learning with friends and family.
Right.
Engage in conversations online. Advocate for policies that support sustainable agriculture.
Yeah.
These small actions can add up to create real change.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least.
It has.
We started with what seemed like a straightforward business story.
Yeah.
Tractor sales are down.
Right.
But we've uncovered so much more.
For sure.
We've explored the economic pressures facing farmers, the potential for innovation and disruption, and the choices that will shape the future of agriculture.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It has.
And I think the most important takeaway is that the future of farming is not a spectator sport.
Right.
It's something we all have a stake in. And our actions, both big and small, can make a difference.
That's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
Into the world of agricultural machinery and the forces shaping the future of farming.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to keep exploring these issues.
Yes.
To ask questions.
Oh, sure.
And to make informed choices about the food you eat and the world you want to live in.
That's it.
That's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.